Why do black men hate Malika Andrews? This is a question that I've been forced to ask myself for the last 2 weeks. For over a year, people have been coming for Malika Andrews. For over a year, I see all over the internet people breaking down Malika Andrews' life, her comments, her stories, her thoughts, her body language. And it's all black men. And they've all determined for some reason that Malika Andrews doesn't like black men. And so they've decided to wage an all-out attack on her whenever something happens. And the most recent example came in the tweet of Des Bryant. Des Bryant tweeted, Malika Andrews, you went out your way to crucify Brandon Miller on draft day over something he didn't do. Why haven't you said nothing about Josh Giddey? I advise you not to make this a black or white thing. That's ironic since you're doing that right now. Your parents really raised you wrong. And just because you went to a private school don't make you better. You appeal, and I know you're kind. You just a puppet. I don't know how a former or current NBA player could sit there across from you and look at you with some kind of respect. So Des Bryant was calling out Malika Andrews for not yet commenting on Josh Giddey. Again, Josh Giddey is the white Australian-born NBA player for the Oklahoma City Thunder who is currently under investigation by the NBA for an alleged inappropriate relationship with an underage girl. The internet posted pictures of him with the girl, video of him with the girl. There are claims that he's having sex with this girl who was supposed to be 15 and he's, I think, 21 right now. This is the claim that's being made. And so they said, well, why hasn't Malika Andrews said anything? And they used that as evidence that she doesn't love black men, that she doesn't like black men, that she hasn't targeted for black men. They also pointed to the fact that, as Des Bryant did, that she, on draft day, mentioned that Brandon Miller was under investigation for allegedly being part of a crime, of potentially bringing a weapon to somebody in the commission of a crime. Here's the problem. Y'all have such hate for Malika Andrews that you are ignoring the facts. You say you don't like her because she mentioned Brandon Miller on draft day and his alleged problematic behavior. Malika Andrews is a reporter. Malika Andrews is a journalist. If somebody is being drafted in the NBA lottery, if you're the number 1, number 2, number 10, number 15 pick in the NBA draft, and there's a circulating allegation that you may have been participating in a crime, you have to cover that. That story needs to be covered. I'm gonna say that again. If you are about to be drafted into the NBA as a lottery pick, an elite level player, and you are being connected to a capital murder case, where you're not just, you don't just know somebody, right, who's involved in a capital murder case, you're being accused of maybe bringing the weapon. If that's the case, how do you not mention that on draft day? How could I not mention? I don't care if you black, white, red, or yellow. If it was a white corn husker from Iowa or Nebraska, and he was the number 1 quarterback or defensive end in the NFL draft, and he was tied to a lynching, would you not want me to mention it and not ruin his big day? No, you have to mention it. It would be professional malpractice for Malika Andrews not to have mentioned it. So why are y'all so uniquely mad at Malika Andrews? The other people say things like, well, do you see how she pushes back against the experts? I see this all over YouTube and other platforms. People talking about how Malika Andrews disagrees with Kendrick Perkins and how she pushed back on Matt Barnes. She is a journalist and she is the host of the show. She is supposed to push back. She's supposed to ask tough questions. And guess what? Women are allowed to disagree with men in public. It's a new rule. We're allowed to do that now. Because when other people do it, when Stephen A pushes back, y'all don't get mad. Stephen A isn't a former athlete, but he pushes back because Stephen A knows basketball and you like it. When Adrian Wojnarowski pushes back, y'all don't get mad. Y'all say, well, he's Woj. So if Woj can do it and Stephen A Smith can do it, y'all didn't mind when Rachel Nichols did it. But somehow when this black woman does it, y'all got a problem? You can disagree with her analysis. I don't always agree with Malika Andrews. I don't always agree with Stephen A Smith. He's my brother, and I don't always agree with him. But you have a right to express the disagreement. Why are Black men using their platforms and their space to do this? Then they say, well, why didn't she say anything about Josh Giddey? She went days without mentioning Josh Giddey. Well, I'm gonna tell you how TV works. If you have a TV show, you can only talk about the topics on your TV show when the show airs. Her show wasn't on, it was Thanksgiving. People were covering football. Her show wasn't on the air, and they were covering football. Two things. Her show wasn't on the air, and they were covering football. That means she's not the executive. She couldn't make the show come on air. She couldn't say, you know what, guys, I have a story I really want to cover. Can we launch a whole episode on my day off to talk about this? And two, they were talking about football, which means there was no breaking story. It wasn't like when a crisis happens and they break in and say, all right, we're going to have two reporters come in and talk about it, like with the Udoka situation, right? They didn't do that. That's not Malika Andrews' call. That's ESPN's call. And it's not that they didn't cover Josh Giddey. They just said they're not going to cover it in great detail. Now, some of you say, well, if it had been a Black man, they would have gone into greater detail. You might be right. There's a way that we jump to conclusions for Black men that we don't for white men. There's a way that networks do that. There's a way that people do that. But the answer isn't to be doubly irresponsible. Let's not double down on the irresponsibility. Let's not say, let's make Josh Giddey the subject of innuendo and suspicion and dishonest stories and unverified claims. No, let's not do that. Let's instead create a journalistic standard that we enforce by being responsible, saying, look, these are allegations for Josh Giddey. When we get more information, we'll report it. But let's hold that standard when a Black man gets that. So the answer isn't for her to double down on Giddey. It's to be just as responsible when it comes to Black men. And from what I can see, Malika Andrews has been responsible when it comes to Black men. Some of y'all say, but what about the Udoka thing? She got into it with Stephen A. Smith. She did get into it with Stephen A. Smith. And according to Stephen A. Smith, she apologized afterward. I don't necessarily think that she deserves or needed to give an apology to Stephen A. Smith, again, who I love, and that's my brother. She may owe him an apology for her tone or for, kind of trying to maybe overtake the conversation on his platform. And he may have thought like his words and position was being misrepresented. They have a right to have that disagreement, but she has a right to engage him. Again, women are allowed to disagree and challenge men. Y'all don't seem to understand that. Malika Andrews was trying to make sure that the Ime Udoka scandal, where Ime Udoka was suspended for a year under very shady circumstances, very still murky, unclear circumstances, she wanted to make sure that the women weren't being dragged into it who didn't deserve to. Because after Ime Udoka was suspended, people started going online trying to find the alleged women who were involved with him. They were trying to make claims of who did what, and they were dragging women, some of whom didn't do anything, out. They were playing their name. They were doxing them. And she said, what we're not going to do is bring innocent women into this. And what she said to Kendrick Perkins was, when Kendrick Perkins said, well, look, I know that this was consensual, she was not saying Kendrick was wrong or right. She was saying, these are unsubstantiated claims. Kendrick says, well, they're not substantiated. They're substantiated to me because I verified it. But he's not a professional journalist. She did him a favor. Kendrick, another brother who I love, has to understand that as journalists, we can't just report things that aren't vetted with multiple sources. I don't doubt that what he's saying is true, but she was saying, as the anchor of that show, we need to manage the conversation. I can't allow everything that you heard or everything that you think to be true to come out. When Woj has a source, that's different. It's vetted. He's a journalist. When Stephen A. has a source, it's vetted. But just saying somebody told me something doesn't make it a source. That's no disrespect to Kendrick Perkins. That's my brother. I'm just saying we have to learn the difference. And I have to say I love these people. They're my brother. Not to name drop or to flex, but because the internet is good for trying to twist people's words or misrepresent people's positions. So then when she finally gets back to work, Malika Andrews does what? She reports on the Giddey story just like everybody else. And she says what we know. And then the videos come out again. Well, she reported on it, but you could tell she didn't want to. You could tell from her body language she didn't really want to say anything. What? What? Now y'all body language experts? You said she wouldn't report on it. She reported the first chance she got. She told everything that we knew, and now y'all mad about that. And then you subject her to psychological scrutiny. Look at Des Bryant talking about your parents raised you wrong. You went to a private school. Don't you think you're better is what he's saying. You going to a private school don't make you better. Somebody else made a video on the internet saying that her childhood was rough and she's traumatized. Y'all don't know nothing about Malika Andrews' background, and neither do I. Y'all don't know her backstory. Stop making shit up. Y'all don't know Malika Andrews. So stop pretending that you do. Your parents raised you wrong is below the belt and disrespectful, Des Bryant. Not surprising from Des Bryant, but still below the belt and disrespectful. Going to a private school don't make you better. That sounds like your insecurity, Des Bryant, not hers. That sounds like your bag, not hers. So, I don't know, y'all. When I see story after story after story about Malika Andrews and how she hates black men, and then y'all go into her personal life finally. She has a white boyfriend, a white man. I don't know anything about, I don't know. Let me be clear. I don't know Malika Andrews. I've never spoken to Malika Andrews. I don't know her personal life. According to the internet, she has a boyfriend who may not be black, and y'all saying that's more proof that she hates black men. Some of y'all running around with every white woman in the world and still say y'all pro-black, but somehow when it comes to Malika Andrews, y'all use every piece of evidence to make a case that's not there. And before y'all start talking crazy, I'm not trying to holler at Malika Andrews. I'm not trying to get at Malika Andrews. I'm a very, 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 very happily married. And like, Malika Andrews is close to my daughter's age. It ain't got nothing to do with none of that. This is about me wanting to stop watching a black woman get piled up on in the sports world. Because the crazy thing is, even when Rachel Nichols was accused of racist stuff, y'all didn't pile on like this. Y'all love y'all some white women. Even when Sage Steele was saying the worst shit ever, y'all didn't jump and make videos like this against Sage Steele. And she said some of those anti-black stuff I've heard. Malika Andrews has just done her job. Malika Andrews has just done her job. And y'all piling on. So please stop. Leave that sister alone. Let her do her job. And ask yourself, what is it about her that really makes you that angry? I posed the question, why do black men hate Malika Andrews so much? The answer is, as black men, unfortunately, too many of us are not comfortable with black women in positions of authority, black women in positions of influence, black women who have talents and gifts, black women who push back against the status quo, black women who call out misogyny and patriarchy, and black women who have the ability, the bravery, the courage, and the extraordinary gifts to survive in a misogynistic, patriarchal world. She's a survivor. She's a winner. She's thriving. And that's why so many of us, sadly, hate her. That's on us, not her. We the ones that got work to do, family.